We have a very special guest with us, Cynthia Block, who is running for mayor of Saskatoon. Cynthia has previously served as a councillor and has a wealth of experience and insights to share with us today. We will be discussing some of the pressing issues our city is facing, including homelessness, housing, acceleration, and investing in our downtown area. So without further delay, let's get started. Cynthia, thank you so much for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Hi, Hyder. Thanks so much for having me.
Okay, thanks. Let's dive right in. As a former councillor, you have had first-hand experience with the challenges Saskatoon faces. One of the most pressing issues is homelessness. What are your plans to address this crisis if you are elected as mayor?
Yeah, the homelessness crisis is definitely on the minds of residents across the city. I've had the opportunity to knock doors in most neighborhoods already, and it's really one of the first things that always come up. We're seeing an accelerating homeless crisis as cities are across the country, but that doesn't make me feel any better to know that we are sharing this emergency. But it does mean that we have to think differently about the way we approach it. We can't continue to sort of do things that are reactive. We have to be proactive. We know what we need. We need to get people off the streets into safe shelter, and we need to find a way to ensure they have the option to get out of homelessness. Homelessness is supposed to be rare, brief, not repeated. And that's not the experience of many of the unhoused in our city today. And so I think what we urgently need first and foremost is a task force. And I would commit to creating a task force. And I think the important piece in this is to make sure residents and businesses are at the table. When we have such a large community problem, I don't think that it's okay anymore to say that policymakers and service providers have got this. I think it's one of those things where we have to really roll up our sleeves and think deeply about how to make sure people can be safely housed so that we can increase their security, lower their vulnerability, and have an opportunity to have community safety and well-being for everyone. And so that task force, in my view, can do a few things. I mean, it'll help us get on the same page and navigate what the strategies look like. But this is a national emergency. When I say cities across the country are at the front lines of this, it's true, but we lack the tools. We don't have tools as a municipality to do housing, to do mental health and addictions. That is provincial government jurisdiction. But I think our residents are asking us to solve the problem together. So I pledge to work urgently with the province, but I'm also going to work with the task force to lobby Ottawa as part of a national effort with other cities to have a national strategy. And my idea is that those resources need to be deployed directly to our city so that we can move on the ground swiftly to get on with what we know we need to do to improve the situation on our streets.
Okay. Thanks, Cynthia. So another significant issue is community safety. Residents and businesses are struggling. How do you plan to tackle this problem?
I guess first and foremost, the urgency does require more police resources. And I am committed to making sure police, fire, and transit get the resources they need. And some of those resources, I think, need to be a little different than how they've been deployed or delivered in the past. And I think that the other really critical piece on this, so let's just say we get the resources for police. We'll have more patrols. I think that is urgently needed. I'm hearing that especially in business districts about how important just police presence helps to maintain social order. But they're kind of connected too, right? Like when people aren't safely housed, they're vulnerable. And that's what causes gangs and organized crime to get involved. So I think that's why it's so important that we get people safely housed. The situation on the streets, I don't think is okay for anybody. And I know that cities across the country are facing this, but that's not good enough. We absolutely need to work urgently with residents and businesses. And in my view, a couple of things we can do and create neighborhood safety plans. We should also create business district safety plans. And by that, I mean business areas across the city, not just the formal districts. I mean, I'm hearing from folks in the Confederation Suburban Center area, Confederation Mall, how important it is that we are considering a community approach. And I guess that's my solemn commitment, is that we're going to take a whole city approach. Again, these are such, urgent matters that all cities are facing. but we need to do things differently. So police resources, when you think about it, right now we're spending 24 cents out of every property tax dollar on police. Is that, and we're still not getting the resource, we're not getting the outcomes that we need. So I think we have to do things more proactively, like building community safety from the ground up. It's sort of both at the same time. So on the one hand, you're going to do the reactive pieces that you know you need to do, and we know we need to support transit operators and riders better. The resources that we currently have with community safety officers might not be the right approach anymore. So I'm working with the police chief to try to move that forward. But that whole community up piece, so whether it's proactive, neighbors working with neighbors, businesses, having like a collective plan and some coordination among police and others to help be proactive before crime happens, I think is the critical missing piece if we want long-term community safety. And to be honest, Hyder, I think that those opportunities also include safe places to be. We know as parents what happens when kids don't have enough to do. And I am really proud of the investments that have been made in our community in partnership, especially the basketball court in Victoria Park. And am I running out of time? Not yet?
No.
Good. Okay. The basketball court in Victoria Park, also the skateboard park. We tend to look at those as recreation, but they're really opportunities for youth to have a place to go and connect with other people, to feel part of the community, to feel like they belong. And I'm learning increasingly how important that is, to grow your community in a good way where people want to participate. And to that end, I'm also calling on the creation, like in partnership, of a 24/7 youth drop-in center. Especially when home isn't safe. If we can find ways to get access to services and places to be for youth, I think we will have a much better opportunity to have an increase in community safety and well-being for the long run by building it from the foundation up.
So my next question is about investment and housing acceleration. But while you already serve as a counselor, can you explain like how long you serve as a counselor, just for our listeners? Like, the mayor who's going for the mayor, like how counselor experience you have?
Right. So I've been on council for 8 years. I was elected in 2016. And my time on council has taught me a lot about our whole community, not just the parts that I'm, more likely to be involved in. I've had the experience of going to all areas of our city, spending time with People's Bridge advocacy and the ethnocultural communities and getting to know friends at the mosques now. And we are, I think, growing up as a city in a very exciting way. And I think there's tremendous opportunity, but also I think there's risk if we don't have leadership at the helm that understands that it's, in my view, not good enough to just open the door. You have to invite people in. And as mayor, I pledge to do that. The reason that I'm running is because I really want this to be a future for all people, where all people can thrive. I want your kids and grandkids to stay, and mine too. And I think that's, the piece around leadership, especially at the crossroads that we are at as a city, that I think is foundational to how we move forward in a good way with our Indigenous relatives, with all of the newcomers that are coming, and also just staying super focused on the pieces that matter most in terms of creating that life for people. So one of them is making sure that we are, getting people safely housed, making sure that community safety and well-being is something everyone has a right to enjoy. Seniors on 20th Street should be able to walk to their church. And, people in Fairhaven should be able to play in their park or let their kids go play in the park with ease. And I take that very seriously. I think there's a huge responsibility. And I think a lot of people have been working very hard, but we need to think differently. That we're not getting the results we need. And so what's the definition when you're trying to do the same thing with the same tools? It doesn't work. If you want to see a different result, I think we have to take a different approach. I'm not sure if that fully answers your question, but I'm happy to talk a bit more if you want about just like some of the boards and committees and stuff, the council that I've been able to sit on.
Yeah. Before getting into further about the committees and wherever you contribute, I like to share my comment, when I came to Saskatchewan in 2008, so one of my colleagues at Agriculture Research Center told me that one of the finest export of Saskatchewan is young people. Like whoever is born here is getting education, finally leaving. I think that is changing. But another important thing is if we like to keep the youth in Saskatchewan, we need to give them opportunity. So it's a amazing, a crossroad where when we are attracting youth to stay here, we need to give them opportunities. So yeah.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. And that's a complexity of many different things. And I get really excited about the city building pieces. I'm excited about the core of our city and creating more density in the downtown and an opportunity to have a modern public transportation system and how those two things interface to help us create more amenities in the core, where it'll be a place for all people. I know we're going to talk about downtown later, but
yeah, definitely.
I get super excited about it.
Yeah. So after commercial break, we will definitely go and ask about the committees you were part in the last 8 years and the role. But speaking of investment, housing acceleration is another critical issue. The demand for housing is increasing, and many residents are finding it difficult to afford a home. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Haider. I know it's rough out there for a lot of people who are trying to figure out how to pay skyrocketing rent. And, young people can't afford a down payment to buy a house. Some efforts are being made to improve that, but I know we still need to do more. So to that end, first of all, let's just put this in some context. Saskatoon, by the end of this year, will have welcomed some 40,000, more than 40,000 people. We are currently a city of 308,000 people. It has grown exponentially or at an accelerating rate in ways I certainly have never seen in my lifetime. And we have the fastest growing city by population, and we have the fastest growing economy. That's wonderful, except that puts pressure on our city. So, we're able to provide jobs. There's a low unemployment rate. But where do they get housed? Where can people afford to live? And how do they move around? And what we have for supply right now is not okay. And so to that end, I've been working very hard to try to find the right solutions. And so for more the medium or long term, we are moving forward with the Housing Accelerator Fund, $41 million from the federal government, which will then get joined with a lot of other funding to start seeing affordable housing go up, which is, not at market rate. Therefore, the folks that can't really afford at market. And the city is giving up some of its own land for $1 because we know how important it is to get this moving forward quickly. The other piece around that Housing Accelerator Fund is the space that's adjacent to the bus rapid transit system, or LINK, which it will be the new modern system. Those areas are going to be upzoned so that we can have more property choice, more housing options. And that will mean a couple of things. It will help young people be able to have houses, lower income people to have those options, close to transportation. And, it also will help seniors who want to stay in their neighborhood by allowing some options to grow up. I would like to say just a little bit more about that. Do I have time? Or should I?
Yeah, please, go ahead.
I know you have a commercial break coming, but I just wanted to say that was a really hard vote. I think that people that live in the interior of those neighborhoods are nervous about the change. The folks in Varsity View know it a little bit better because we spent 3 years working with them on the College Corridor Plan. And rather than seeing it as a whole bunch of apartment buildings or condos that are going up, they're able to view it more from how we're going to be a more livable, walkable city where you go around the corner and there's a bistro or a coffee shop or a restaurant. And, it's going to feel, there's going to be more park space. The College Corridor Plan will be brought to council, I believe, in January of 2025. And that'll be our first glimpse into what a transportation corridor with a modern public transportation system will look like. But if you're the folks that are living, say, close to Preston Avenue or other areas of the city that didn't get that consultation, that's, I think, has been the struggle. And so, I pledge to make sure that consultation, it happens and that we get that corridor planning put together in a way that people can have true input, and that we also work with the housing industry to incentivize along the actual bus transit corridors instead of the interior, helping to protect the interior of the neighborhood and the character of it. So that's where we're at on that.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks so much, Cynthia. So we have 2 more minutes, and then we will go for a short commercial break. So before asking another question, do you have any comments, the city, the resident of city, a common man, how can they contribute? I know that there are some advertisement on board that, some of the committees, they need people, something. So what's how take the creative ideas from people and bring them on board?
And honestly, those boards and committees are a fantastic way to do it. And it's also a great way to develop leadership skills. I would probably tell your listeners right now to go to the city's website and look up boards and committees because they're accepting applications right now.
Okay, that's good.
I think if you've never done it before, please feel free to contact the city and ask questions. The number is 306-975-2476. It can get you to almost anybody, 975-2476. But I think it gives people the opportunity to connect, to feel like they're contributing and feeling like they're belonging, but it also looks really good on a resume. And that just leads to better leadership. And I have actually more I'd love to talk to you about that because the Women on Council last year did a special women's forum, and we hired 2 immigrant women to help run it. And it was a 4-month practicum, if you will. And I just want to be able to tell you about the things that we were able to teach and learn together and how important it actually was for the city councilors as well as the immigrant and refugee women that were a part of that forum.
No, thanks so much, Cynthia. Listeners, let's go for a short commercial break. And once we're back from the commercial break, we're going to ask a few more questions. Before I'm going to ask you about investing in our downtown area, you were talking about few immigrant women and the forum. So Cynthia, could you explain for our listeners and if they like to contribute for the city, please?
Yeah, I was explaining that the Women on Council put together a forum, and together with interns, immigrant intern women that we hired, we put on this forum. And what we did was we talked and they talked. There was about 150 women. And we taught and learned together. And we learned about things like taking down barriers and why is it hard for immigrant and refugee women to participate in the workforce or to get a job at City Hall or to take the bus or to have childcare. And we talked about the barriers to the leadership that they would like to do. And they came from areas where they were leaders in their own right. And so how do we make sure that they have a clean pathway to be able to be involved? And I think as we were teaching and learning together, I came away feeling like we had really done a lot and learned a lot that day. But it wasn't until, months afterward when, some of those women would come up to me like at the grocery store or at an event that I was speaking at and say, I can't tell you how much this changed my life. And whether that's getting involved in your city, going to be on a board or a committee, or whether it's ways to, how to run an election campaign. How do you do that? What are the roles that need to be put together so that you can be successful? And at least one woman is currently running for provincial office as a result of that forum. Well, I'm sure there's other reasons, but that makes me proud that we were able to have that kind of success. But the most critical, important thing that I learned was that when you invite people in to the process, when they can ask those questions and tell you where the barriers are, and you can help them navigate a path, and they help you be a better leader. It was actually very humbling. And I really think we should do more of that. We actually right now, just this past week, I met the 4 new interns, 3 women and 1 male. I don't know what the project will be this time, but we had a really great conversation about how the mayor's office could be involved and how important it is that we are, setting tone at the top and being inclusive and making people feel welcome here.
That's awesome. Cynthia, could you please explain, investing in our downtown area is also a hot topic. So what are your plans to revitalize downtown Saskatoon?
So much of this, Hyder is connected in terms of trying to build a more affordable city, a safe city, all of those pieces. What we need to do is create density, like residential and businesses, where infrastructure and services already exist. For every meter of roadway or sidewalk that we create, we become a more expensive city. And so I want to do less of that and do more of utilizing the space that we currently have, because not only does that, raise up your tax base where you don't have to add additional costs or very few comparatively, you're also adding vibrancy. And when you have that kind of a tax base with that kind of vibrancy, you can do a lot of things in terms of adding green space, in terms of, playground equipment or all the amenities that modern cities have. I want our city to have as well. I'm very excited that just one of the last orders of business of this current term of council was the approval of the brand newly minted city center plan. So it's a forward-looking 10-year plan to look at, like, how do we achieve those goals that I just talked about? And what I'm most proud of is that we took a couple of years, for sure, maybe even longer, engaging in our community. What do they want to see? What are the missing amenities? What are the green spaces they want to see? I know specifically Ali Akbar from Open Door was very hard on us and said, you must find cultural spaces we can afford. If you're going to have an arena and a modern convention center downtown, don't leave us out. Make sure you're thinking of us and figuring those things out. And so when I look at the plan, I know it was done with all of us. And at the foundation is reconciliation. Mm-hmm. It's filled with Indigenous ways, Indigenous references, but also I see so much opportunity with our Indigenous partnerships. Mm-hmm. We just this past week approved, we signed our 11th urban reserve contract. Mm-hmm. And those have turned out to be extraordinary economic growth factors for everyone in our city. And I hope we get to do more. And I hope we get to do some of that downtown. That's my inside voice. But I get excited about what we can do together in partnership that puts, economic action into reconciliation. So those are the pieces of the overall plan. And, it will take a long time. And, no doubt some of those pieces will change. My personal, I really want people to see this plan. If you go to the city's website, saskatoon.ca, and then in the search engine, just put city center plan, it's beautiful. Mm-hmm. My favorite part is the potential to have a linear park that goes from the, basically where the Midtown Plaza parking lot is right now, where, the entertainment district will be someday, all the way to the riverbank to connect to Meewasin. Mm-hmm. That would be such a great way for us all to move around and sort of be able to hang out in the center of our city. For those of us who watched River Landing grow up, we've learned that when you make that kind of public investment, it attracts private investment. And I think that, right now that River Landing area is, among the best used areas of our entire city. So I think connecting those pieces will be a huge benefit as we grow our city in a good way, upward and inward. And I think, also knowing that we have other pieces. So you've got the River Landing district, you've got the historic district from Midtown to the Bessborough. But then you've also got the entertainment district, you've got the warehouse district, you've got the children's area out by Spadina. The library will be up against 25th Street in that area. You now have a city that you can just walk and discover, because it will be a livable, walkable space for everyone. And a place for all people. That's what I get excited about.
Yeah, thanks so much, Cynthia. Those are some amazing initiatives. So before we wrap up, is there anything else you would like to share with our listeners?
I should probably say one other thing about the downtown. A lot of people ask me about the downtown event and entertainment district, specifically the arena. And I just want everyone to know that that's a shelf-ready project and no shovels are going in the ground. I think that, when we plan large infrastructure projects like bridges, it's very similar. You go to all that detailed work and you eventually come up with a plan, but you don't necessarily connect with that plan for many years to come, because you wait for infrastructure dollars from other orders of government. In this case, also a private partner, which we have secured. And we're just going to let that sit on the shelf unless or until, we can fulfill that funding strategy, which has zero impact to property tax, especially the arena. If moving South Center downtown costs taxpayers any money, I will not support it. So I guess I just want to clarify that, because a lot of folks, I think that we're putting shovels in the ground. And that is, I think that the mayor's office needs to be focused on the urgent matters of our time: homelessness, community safety, and affordability.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Cynthia. Thanks so much, listener, for attending our live radio. We are really thankful to Cynthia for spending some time for our listeners, and she explained, what her priorities are.